Well, hey man, we're thrilled to have Stephen Igoe here today. Uh, Host of Hoist the Colors, the co-creator of Hoist the Colors. Just really happy to have you here, man. Really excited. Big fan of yours. Been a big fan of yours for a long time. What do you have to say, man? The GasCast audience, we're thrilled to have you, pal.
Well, I know we've been working on this for quite some time, and I'm glad we finally got a night and a day to get it done. And I'm thrilled to be on, man. I'm always glad to come on, talk some, whether it be ECU history, ECU current events, and just sports in general. Man, I just like talking ball. I mean, that's the reason I got into the industry. Fans of the game like yourself grew up, growing up an ECU fan, much like I did. Like, I'm sure we'll connect on a lot of things. And obviously, I know your dad really well as well. So, super thrilled to join, man, and glad to help out.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Shout out Pirate Al. Pirate Al
One
in
of
the
the
chat. I'm sure he'll
one of the
watch this.
OGs.
Yeah, dude. I would say the biggest Pirate fan. I mean, I'm a little biased, but
He's got to be up there. If he's not the top, he's at least top three.
his heart is literally purple and gold. I mean, it's kind of wild. Okay, well, Steve, first I want to ask you, man, what's kind of your background? I've always wondered because you got into ECU. I know you're an ECU fan. I know in 2010 you were at East Carolina, and that's when you got Hoist the Colors going. How did you get to East Carolina? Where are you from originally? I always kind of want to know some of that stuff as well.
To answer your question, I'm from Greenville. Grew up an East Carolina fan in an ECU family, and just was kind of born into it. Probably much like yourself, and grew up going to the games. And I went to D.H. Conley High School. Before that, A.G. Cox Middle School. Before that, Wintergreen Primary, and I guess Wintergreen Intermediate. So, just one of those things where I've always been in Greenville. I had a desire to go to ECU. I didn't really apply to any other schools. I don't know if I guess I had decent grades, but I didn't really even try to get into anywhere else. I wanted to go to ECU. Started in 2010. Started at ECU in 2010. Started Hoist the Colors in 2010 as well. And it was actually the summer going into my freshman year. I grew up an ECU fan. I was like, I feel like the fan base is so vast, and I grew up as a Seattle Mariners and a Denver Broncos fan, which is a whole different story. But like, I got a lot of my coverage obviously online. You can't pick up the Daily Reflector and get a bunch of Denver Broncos news. So I knew the value of online sports reporting, especially at that time, was just kind of taking off. So I started Hoist the Colors. I didn't feel like there was really an online outlet that kind of did ECU fans justice. And so I was like, all right, if you got a fan in, even Raleigh, which, News and Observer's coverage has only dropped off even further since I started Hoist the Colors, but Charlotte, DC, Virginia, Florida, up and down the Eastern Seaboard, I'm like, those people, they have no way of getting real ECU news. Now, when I started the site, I had no idea like it would grow into what it's grown into. I was actually an exercise physiology major at ECU. My original goal was to be a physician's assistant. I don't know if I would have ever made it in the medical field because I couldn't pass chemistry, but ended up starting Hoisted Colors. That took off. Had a lot of friends that backed it. It got going on the message boards. Eventually, word of mouth spread, and it just kind of took off. So I switched to communications. I think midway through my time at ECU, ended up majoring in communications, concentration in journalism with a minor in business administration. So it all worked out, man. I was much like any college student trying to figure out what the hell I was doing, and it took some time, but it's worked out, and I could be more blessed, obviously, to cover my alma mater, for a living.
Awesome. Well, I knew you went to ECU. I knew that you were from North Carolina. I didn't know that you were from Greenville. I didn't know that you did that.
Oh yeah.
I'm from Greenville. I went to Rose. I did that whole thing as well. And much like what it sounds like with you, I always wanted to go to ECU. That was, that's where I always wanted to go from day one. It didn't matter if I didn't have A+ grades, but if I did, it wouldn't have mattered. Well, that's what I say is it's easy to say when I was like a C+B average to say that I want to do that. But either way, love the Pirates, man. But anyway, man, that's awesome. That's really cool. I always wanted to know too. I don't know how open you'd be about this necessarily, but like I'm like, dude, you're in my opinion, just for me, I'm not gassing you up. I'm just telling you how I honestly feel. I'm a big fan of yours. I think you do a great job. I
This
think
is the GasCast, right? So you
it
maybe
is.
gas me
It
up.
is the GasCast. I do wish. Shout out to our co-host Ricky Quay. He had some arrangements. We'll link up with him, in the other segment of the show. But he's a miracle guy. He's just he's the man. Everybody loves Ricky, Mr. Electric. That's what we call him. I just made that up right then. We've never,
Mr. Electric.
but we have a great dynamic going. So we miss Ricky, but he's a big Miami Hurricanes guy. The whole Dolphins thing. Cuban guy as well.
Tough to be a Dolphins fan these days.
That is true. That is very true. So I was wondering too, have you considered or would you ever consider going to maybe a bigger market one day or at some point or anything like that?
So that's, a lot of that. If I was single and I didn't have a family or a wife that, really cared about being here, and my parents are close by, they live in the same neighborhood. So I got a pretty sweet setup. I don't really have any desires to leave. I mean, there was a time I grew up wanting to be like a Major League Baseball beat writer when I was young and naive, but then I look at like all the travel those guys do and just the demand. And like, I mean, working sports and even covering ECU, man, is a 7 day a week job. Like you work a lot of nights and weekends, and that's just part of it. It's a labor of love. I mean, there is, return on the work as well, obviously, when you kind of get to a decent position, but it takes a while to work your way up. And I feel like with what I've been able to build at ECU, hoist the colors, it'd be tough to leave. It's kind of my baby, so to speak. Like it would take a lot to leave this place. And I don't know if I really ever see a scenario in which I do. I mean, like I guess if ECU ever got to a point where they were just irrelevant and people quit subscribing, that would be the only way that I would have to be, have to look into a different direction. But I've had talks with, 24/7 Sports is owned by CBS and Paramount, and there was a time where they asked me, did I want to go to the national team or cover the NFL full time? But that would mean I would not be able to cover ECU. And I actually spent 3 years when 24/7 Sports was really getting rolling with NFL coverage. From 2014 through 17, I covered the Panthers in addition to covering ECU. But that was when I was just, single and dating Erica, my now wife. So I had the time. I would drive to Charlotte on Sundays in addition to covering ECU. And it was a lot. It was a grind. Eventually, I just told my boss, I was like, man, I can't keep doing this. Like, this is a lot. And so I ended up going back to ECU. And they were like, well, do you want to join the CBS team full time? And ended up staying with ECU. And it's my baby, couldn't leave it. And, I still think it's, a blessing every day. So to answer your question, I mean, you never say never, but I would say 99.9%, I really have no other desires at this time to step on to another job. I don't want to pull a Skip Holtz and tweet purple and end up leaving for South Florida the next day, but I felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, I mean that was a heartbreaker at the time. I was also like I don't know, like maybe 9 years old at the time, but it was still a heartbreaker. So I wanted to ask you too. So I was an intern at 94.3. Went into but was there for probably 6 or 8 months or whatever. I have a sports media communications background with college, kind of like yourself. I found it difficult to cover especially certain big ECU games where I'm like, I want to be a fan. I have that natural purple heart, but you got to tweet the game. You got to talk about injuries. Is that ever frustrating for you, or have you gotten used to that? Or tell me about your opinion on it, because that was always hard for me.
Yeah, so for those who aren't ever in the box, the press box or anything, to give you an idea, it's almost like a sterile environment. There's no cheering allowed. They announce on the intercom pregame. Basically, you'll get kicked out of the press box and your credentials will be revoked if you cheer or any of that stuff. It's a professional working environment, operated by technically the Sports Writers, Football Writers Association of America, whatever. Not that those people are really up there, but you have the media relations staff that are obviously enforcing things. And so you got to be a professional. And I learned, I was lucky enough to intern at the Reflector while I was doing Hoist the Colors and Young and Naive. And I worked under guys like Nathan Summers at the time, Tony Castleberry, Ronnie Woodward, and just people like that really taught me, all right, even if you grew up a fan, like this is a job, you got to be a professional. And so I learned at a young age. And at the time, it was hard to get a credential as an internet site. So I was like on my P's and Q's. Like, I'm not going to blow this. We got kind of a trial run, so to speak, when I was young and in school, and then kind of, became full time after that as far as gaining credential access. And I just kind of like taught myself to just do the job. And now, honestly, man, I'm kind of numb to it. I mean, like obviously, I'm doing it what since 2010. That'd be 15 years, which is crazy to think about. But um, it's one of those things like you do something long enough, you're kind of conditioned to just be a pro. And now, like obviously, if it's 4th and 5 and the game's on the line, like deep down, I'm like, let's are we allowed to cuss on this podcast?
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
honestly being respectful for you, my
Okay.
friend. No, yeah, we
And,
can let it rip. Let it rip, baby.
okay. Internally, I'm like, don't fuck this up. Let's get this done. And because the other thing too is not only did I grow up an ECU fan, and I really do try to take the fandom out of it to be as unbiased as possible. But like for my business, ECU, the better they do, the more interest we do, the better subscribers we have. So I want ECU to win. I don't have a problem saying that. Like I do try to remove myself from like the emotions of the game and be like, all right, analytically, what went wrong here? What do the numbers tell you? What does the situation tell you? And the biggest thing I always remind myself of too, all right, I'm covering ECU. Obviously, I'm writing 99% for ECU fans, but the other team, the other fan base, they feel the same way about their team. So like there's two sides to every story. If there's a great play that happens in the game against ECU, it's not that ECU effed up and maybe they did, but the other team probably made a great play too. They practiced all week. So you try to think about all that sort of stuff, but at the same time, like at the end of the day, we all got into this because we were fans of the game, fans of a certain team. If any sports writer out there tells you, well, I've never cheered for any team, like they're full of shit. So
Mm,
um, you do have to be a pro, and there's a balance to it, but also like there is some reality to, you know, wanting the team you cover to do well.
right, I understand. First off, let's just say that the consummate professional, Stephen Igoe. I mean, he comes on the show. What a beautiful back
Dropping F bombs.
drop an F bomb. No, that's not what I was talking about. Just the most comprehensive answers. What a background he's got. Um, but no, I appreciate that, man. But yeah, so I want to ask you. I don't want to take up too much of your time here, dude. But there's a couple things I wanted to ask you specifically about some of the ECU stuff. Um, First off, ECU basketball. We're coming. Okay. So I don't know if you know this. I'm a die-hard ECU basketball fan.
First off, mad respect to that.
Appreciate that. For example, the Brandon Suggs fadeaway bank in shot against Memphis
Memphis.
3 or 4 years ago. I shamefully cried in the stands. I was crying when he banked that
That was
shot.
a big shot.
It
You
was
know,
a huge shot. I mean, the yes, yes, yes. That whole thing. So
funny thing about that, our son Slater, I'm pretty sure he was like, because yeah, 3 years ago, he's now 4. I'm pretty sure he was like 6 months old at the time, and I was on the couch and I screamed yes as well and woke him up from a nap, and my wife got so pissed. So
it was worth it. It was worth
yeah,
it.
because I wasn't at that game because I think he either had a doctor's appointment or something. Maybe we were sick. I don't know. But I remember watching it. I'm like, yeah, like probably F yeah. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
like I was jacked for that because that was a huge win at the time. Anytime you beat Penny Hardaway is huge.
Well, it was huge, and especially at that specific time. I don't remember what we were, maybe 10-6 or something. And then Memphis was pretty good, maybe I don't know, 12-2 or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was a big win at the time, and we were thinking that was going to be the upward trajectory.
We always do.
It didn't really work out. So I'm a big EC basketball fan, like we said. Love the Pirates. I'm going to go regardless. There's a couple players I like. Jordan Riley, Woodard. I'm glad that we kept those guys as well as a couple others. Um, how do you feel about some of the replacements that we've gotten as far as some of the offseason transfers? Just overall, some of the new pieces we're going to be seeing because unlike the last couple of years, at least for me, it seems like some of the pieces we've brought in have not been people that we all know, high star, high recruited guys. So what do you think about that? What's the expectation? Was there any off-season missteps that happened, or is this part of the plan, do you think?
I'll be honest, I'm pretty underwhelmed by the offseason. But maybe that's a good thing because like I feel like this team has zero expectations, and obviously being picked preseason number 10 in the American, which is far from a juggernaut, is kind of a sign of that. And I do think that they missed on a few of their top transfer targets. I don't know if the staff will come out and say that, but to me, like given the budget they had, and I feel like they had some pretty good financial backing. I do think there's a side of it where the number of quality player it just costs so much now. It's hard for ECU to compete and go get a proven guy. So you get the two guys I'm excited about. Corey Calker, junior college point guard. He was a Louisville commit, and probably lower down Louisville's order. If they would have really wanted him, they would have got him. So like, let's be real there. But ECU got him. Talented player. JUCO to D1, that leap worries me. That's kind of at times hit or miss as we've seen in the past, but a lot of good reports out of him. I think he'll be your starting point guard. And then the other guy is Giovanni Imajuru. You look at what he did over his career at George Mason, didn't play a ton, but they had a stud number five man. So he was kind of the backup. He's definitely a quality big who can play in the American. I don't think he's going to be a big scorer, but he's going to be a presence. And so like you add those two to Woodard and Riley, that's four guys. All right, so that's four guys that I think are pretty good, have a chance to be good. Beyond that, man, I'm skeptical. I I just don't know where the shooting is going to come from. And I don't really, because to me, you look at it, Calker is a shooter, but he's also a point guard. So, like, he's kind of more of a drive and slash guy. And then you got Riley, who's a drive and slash guy, Woodard, who's a drive and slash guy, Imajuru can't shoot threes. So they're going to count on Eli DeLaurier, who's a Providence transfer, to shoot some threes. Also, Isaiah Mbang has shot the ball well. Didn't really shoot it that well at William and Mary, but coach said he shot the ball well this preseason. So we'll see what he does there. Tybo Bailey, a sophomore, shot the ball well. So you got three or four guys that I think can shoot it well, but where do those guys fit in with those other four? So they want to play big. They want to play Geo at the five and Delorier or Reed Kaysen at the four, who are 6'10 and 6, in that 6'10, 6'11 range. So, like, they want to play big, rebound, all that good stuff. But got to hit some shots, man. I feel like we've, throughout the entire Mike Schwartz era, and I like Schwartz a lot, we talked about they got to recruit shooters, and they just, for whatever reason, have been unable to do that. So I'm pretty skeptical of this team. I'm not going to lie, but look, under Schwartz, they're going to play hard. They're going to play, some defense, and they're going to rebound the ball, and it's just a matter of how much can they score. To me,
Honestly, Stephen, I'm very underwhelmed by what
yeah,
happened in the offseason. On the simple fact that the pieces that we kept, I thought if we could add, I forgot CJ. What's his last name?
Walker.
CJ Walker. A guy we added last year, highly touted, came in, was an unbelievable player for us last year. If we could have brought in a player of that caliber this year, once again, you get an off season with Jordan Riley and Woodard and some of the other guys and some of the other transfers you put in there. Who knows what will happen? I mean, at least there's a chance, but maybe the opportunity wasn't huge, but I feel like there was a little bit of an opportunity squandered to some extent because I like some of the players we brought back. I just wish that we would have brought in maybe one or two more marquee guys if we could have, if possible.
For me, it's like if you get one stud player, I think you feel a lot better. And maybe Calker ends up being that guy. I don't know. Like I know internally, they brought in like I can't remember what school, some like Sun Belt all conference player, and they were close to getting him. And I got a text that was like, "We're gonna pass on this guy because we feel better about the next guy." And that next guy was Calker. And whether that's BS or not, I don't know. But they feel good about him. And I know they paid probably a pretty good premium to get him. And so maybe he's the guy. But like, I don't know, man. I need to see it to believe it. And I'm with you. 19 wins for a 19 win season, and to bring back like some good pieces, as you mentioned, it just feels like there is no hype for this team. And maybe I'm a part of that because I'm not really hyping them up. But to be honest, I don't love what I'm hearing. What I'm like, I know they got crushed by all accounts by the Wake Forest people in their scrimmage, preseason secret scrimmage, like 97-60 or something like that. So, if that was the case, then obviously there's something didn't go right there. So I don't know. I just need to see them play.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes, man. I'm a little nervous about it, but I got to say, man, I've been a dedicated, I'm talking about almost every single game I've watched, either live or immediately the rebroadcast, every EC basketball game for the last like 15 years, at least. It's unbelievable knowing the Pirates' history and seeing what I've seen. It's like, you think that we would at least get lucky once? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's almost an unlucky thing because there's teams like random North Carolina teams that can squeak into. I know they're at the lower, they're not playing at the same level we are, lower conferences, but still, it's like you would think at least one time we would have been able to crack through and get into the NCAA tournament one way or the other, and it just has not happened in what 92 or something. So
Yeah, and we've never even really been close. Like there was the one year they got to the semis in Conference USA under Lebo and lost to, I think, to Memphis. But that's the thing. And I do feel like since John Gilbert has come in, I think they have invested more in basketball than ever before. And I feel like right now, like they have a better chance of getting lucky because of the investment. But also, you got to be able to recruit. The resources are better. They're still not as good as the rest of the top half of the conference, so to speak. But you should still, if you get the right fit, the right players, it all comes together. Like you would think one of these years you get lucky. Like Joe Dooley on paper, you couldn't hire a more qualified coach to come back to ECU. And for whatever, look at the players he brought in. And for some reason, it just didn't work out. Like I've always said, Indian Burial Ground is 100% underneath Minji's Coliseum. And until an
it,
exorcist is brought in, I'm gonna say we're gonna continue to struggle.
dude, there's got to be. I mean, what the hell, man? I mean, I go to it's unbelievable. And it's kind of shameful, like I hate telling people. I mean, I don't hate it. I love my teams, but it's like people see I'm the guy too, little context. I'm not like I don't have a secondary or tertiary team. I don't do that. I'm a one team guy.
You're not the Duke or North Carolina fan who pulls for ECU,
I
as
mean,
well.
it's so common that I don't hate it. Like
Yeah.
it's for because almost everybody does that.
Everybody, yeah, it's
But
it's
but
it's kind of sad,
it
but
is. But I just people are like, what teams do you like? I'm like, well, I'm an ECU fan for football, for basketball, for everything.
and they're like, no, what basketball team do you like?
That's right.
ECU.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. And honestly, on a week to week basis, what's going on in the SEC, ACC, I've got no clue. I mainly focus on ECU and then professional sports, mainly the NFL. That's kind of my favorite thing. Um, but anyway, really quick though, that CIT 2013 team, I'm telling you right now, man. I look back at that roster. I was there watching it live. If that team was somehow in the NCAA tournament, I think we may have been able to win at least a game or two. Maybe. I'm just saying that team had a lot of talent up to top to bottom. Great point guard, Miguel Paul, baby. Oh man, Miguel Paul, Akeem Richmond, Maurice Kemp, Robert Sampson. I mean, come on now, you know.
Maurice Kemp was an absolute dog. I mean, I do love that team, and that's the thing about it. As people will say you're crazy for making that statement, but I do agree with you because think about how they were clicking down the stretch of that year. Like the CIT, and yes, it's the CIT, but they were just destroying folks. Once they got past, I can't remember who they played in the opener. Like they played some sloppy game, but like once they just got past that, they were just destroying teams, man, because they were just playing with confidence, with swagger. You had Akeem who could shoot it. Obviously, you did have kind of a little bit of everything with that team. Akeem could shoot it. Miguel Paul could do everything at point guard. Obviously, Maurice Kent was just a freak of nature. You had Robert Sampson, who was just like a shot blocker, rebounder, hit the occasional 3-pointer with
Yeah,
his
yeah,
ugly
yeah.
ass shot.
Yeah, and to this day, man, I can't figure out why. Because wasn't the story he was like he was going to become a small forward at Georgia Tech or
Yeah,
something.
that was a weird move. And
Um,
it did. You get Tyler Armstrong on that team too, and like Paris Roberts, Campbell. So like it was a solid team, man. I mean, it really was like if they could have gotten to the dance, it wouldn't have been shocked. I think they lost like Tulsa or something in the first round of the whatever it was. And was it the American? No, Conference USA tournament that year. So
yeah,
yeah, but that was a fun team. And then it was
it,
all downhill.
It was a fun team. I'm gonna tell you, some of those Akeem Richmond nights, like individual performances. I mean,
Insane,
people, any sports fan would have thought that was nuts. When he'd come down and
dude.
make literally five threes in a row in transition, back to back to back. I mean, it was unbelievable.
I'll
But
never forget. Todd Graffinini was the play-by-play announcer at Tulane. This may have been the year after because I think he came back the year after. But either way, the ECU was playing Tulane and Midges, and I was sitting beside him. That was back when the media actually sat courtside, not up in the rafters. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Graf was sitting beside me. He's now the play-by-play guy with the Pelicans in the NBA. But he had a highlighter, and he would talk about Akeem Richmond. And every time Akeem Richmond hit a three, he would just throw his highlighter because it was one of those games. It was like 7, 8 threes. He was unconscious. And you could just hear him be like, and Richmond's got the ball. Richmond drills a three, and he would just throw his highlighter, and like it couldn't be stopped. And I just remember sitting courtside at that game and was like, man, this is awesome. You know, me and you appreciate it because we're ECU basketball people, but like there's probably like 500 other people that actually know Akeem Richmond, how good he was.
that's
But
right.
that's
Yeah.
what makes it special.
Yeah, I mean, all the millions of GasCast listeners out there. There's probably only a few that understand the reference. But that's okay. The ones that matter understand. That's what it's about. Okay, so I think we've done our thing on ECU basketball. I think we've that's probably not a good thing to do on camera there. Okay, here's a question I've always wanted to ask you. What is the deal with um, the difference in NIL collectives between ECU and some of the other in-state schools? We have, obviously we can fill out a 50,000 seat stadium. Is it really like a lack of a certain type of fan that just isn't at ECU, or is it a lack of outreach, or what's the deal there? I mean, why is there such a differential there? And I'm
So,
naive to this, so I'm
yes. So there are a lot of layers to it. The easiest answer, because NIL and rev share are all kind of grouped into one now, and so like the biggest thing now that ECU faces is the television contract. So the American schools get around $7 million of TV money per year, and I don't even know how much like the ACC and the SEC, but it's like 4, 5, 6 times that. The SEC, I want to say, gets like 50, 60 million, something insane. I don't have the direct numbers in front of me, but basically, those schools can take all that money and put it into their rev share, whereas ECU has a fraction of that. The other side of it is NIL, which is basically what the fans give. ECU has a lot of alumni, as you say, but you think about what ECU produces, it's mainly nurses, teachers, not too many like rich alumni. And so like you have a bunch of these private schools like Duke and SMU that are turning out, these multimillionaire people. Everybody in Oklahoma or Texas has oil money. Texas Tech right now, they got a lot of them just have mega boosters, and it's only like 10 guys, but they're like Tulane. Tulane doesn't have a lot of alumni, but they have rich alumni, and they're giving a shit ton to football, those 8 to 10 people, and that's making the difference. So I think a lot of it is Greenville's not the biggest area too, the biggest market. So you've got less entrepreneurs, less business to tap into, versus like a South Florida and Tampa, you can go around to, wherever and tap into a bunch of different places. So the location, the alumni base, and to me, the TV contract, those are the three biggest things that hurt ECU.
gotcha.
And I just
Okay.
think that the fans in general have not, in my opinion, the diehards have, but I think the fans in general just have not really. Maybe it hasn't been pushed as much as it needs to be, but like haven't really understood the importance of getting behind it too. Now that it's in house for sure.
Do you think that there's any issues or any like disconnect where there's I don't want to say like a lack of outreach to try to get more funding, or like for example Mr. Beast. I'm assuming there has to be. I know that he uses their facility sometimes. Vince McMahon. Whatever. I'm sure that there's people out there, right? But just overall, do you think that there's any lack of outreach or culture or something that's getting these people wanting to invest in us? And I don't know, man. It seems like maybe the fire that we have now isn't the same that it was 15, 20 years ago. And I know that there's a lot of factors for that. But anyway, man, what do you think?
I think I agree with you in the sense of that, like, unless you're in it, unless you really understand, and you're like obviously yourself, you follow ECU sports on a daily basis, so you know how important it is. But if you're just like a casual fan that has gotten away from the university, I think you just don't like so much of the media now is just like power forward, power forward, power forward, just shoved down your throat. I think they don't even like really see ECU as a big time program because of the narratives out there. Whereas like all it would take is a cash infusion. You get one cash infusion and you can become a juggernaut overnight in this era of college athletics. So like all it takes is one. I will credit Garrett Blackwelder, who runs Grover Gaming, a multi billion-dollar industry or $1 million industry in town. He has gotten behind ECU, and I think that's made a difference. But like you need more like him, and he's still a very young millionaire. So it's one of those things where Mr. Beast, obviously, that would solve a lot of problems overnight. And to me, like he could get a lot of benefit from it. I just don't think he's a sports guy. I do know ECU has pitched his people. I was told basketball specifically. I don't think they met with Mr. Beast, but they met with his people, and they basically said,
I
"Hey,
got to
Mr.
cut you
Beast,
off. I got to cut
yeah,
you off just while it's on my mind.
go for it."
Here's really the point I'm getting at. The people that are pitching him, are they people like me? Like I
No,
could get in there and pitch them and say, listen, man, hey, listen, buddy, you cut open those veins right there, pal. That's purple, dog. That's purple. Where it really matters, like it matters to me how well or not well we do in sports. It matters to me. Does it matter to the people that are pitching these people? Does it? And you don't even have to answer that. But I mean, it's like
I mean, they work for ECU. I don't think I don't know if they're obviously they want ECU to do well for their own jobs, but I think you need the right panel of people. So they pitched them on like I don't know. Hey, we got this basketball program that has never won. We'll basically become the Mr. Beast Boys, whatever the hell you want to call us, and we'll go win an American Conference title, and you can document it along the way with your YouTube or however you want to do it. And I guess I know they considered it, but I haven't heard anything since. So I don't know.
I
I mean,
think you would have to do like a complete overhaul. Like I just don't see what Mr. Beast gets out of that
yeah,
necessarily.
like outside of content, but if you phrase it as all right, Mr. Beast gave a bunch of money to this team that has never won anything, and now they're winning. They're competing for a championship. I don't know. Maybe you can phrase it that way, but there's got to be a way to do it. But I just don't think he's a sports guy. So you got to go really. How does it become content at the end of the day, like you said?
Well, yeah, and also, you see ECU in some of his videos and stuff, but I don't think the connection there is necessarily that concrete, at least
Yeah.
to viewers, like I notice it, right, obviously. But maybe if it was like clearly Mr. Beast was an ECU guy, then it would make more sense. But I don't know, man. I just like, hey, put me in there, man. Let me go talk to these guys. Serious. I mean, I'm serious. Like, put me in there.
There's got to be a way to get him involved. I mean, I know it's one of the more the Vince McMahon thing was a topic every month on Hoisted Colors until he got in trouble. Now it's Mr. Beast as a topic
Yeah.
on every and I get it, like, but it's also hard to just beg for money. So it's one of those things. How do you find that happy medium of how to approach him the right way?
Right, right. And I first off, dude, appreciate your time so far, man. We'll kind of close it up here soon, but
Yeah, no, this is
you're
awesome.
yeah, you're the man, dude. We let it rip here on the GasCast. By the way, all the GasCast viewers out there, Steven's links will all be down low in the description. Steven, man, if you get big time traction from this, don't be shocked. Now, if
Yeah, hey, I'm ready, man. I'm ready to see the numbers go through the roof.
the GasCast tsunami is coming quick. But anyway, I wanted to ask you about specifically any type of old stories that maybe from the last 10 or 15 years that were behind the scenes that were just kind of wacky or crazy, maybe under Scotty Moe or even rough, like maybe behind the scenes story that was just kind of that you didn't report at the time because you didn't want to cause any, whatever. But Just a weird story that you've heard maybe over the years.
Where to begin? I mean, with Scotty Montgomery specifically, there were so many stories that he was just in over his head so much. But I didn't have a problem with Scotty. But I remember the first spring practice, I was out there taking photos and doing videos, and his director of ops called me and basically like tried to threaten me to take the videos down because it was a competitive disadvantage for ECU for opponents to see that they're. And this was just practice. It wasn't even like team practice. This was literally a linebacker going through a drill, hitting a pad. And like he was like, you can't be putting this out there because now teams are going to know how small our linebackers are. And I'm like, man, this goes on everywhere. Like, what are you talking about? And this was the director of ops. And then I hear somebody's voice in the background of the call, and it's Scotty Montgomery. Instead of calling me, he's like speaking on speakerphone in the background, going at me. And so like eventually he takes over the call, and it was just a cluster. And that was kind of a as he got older in the job, he ended up doing better, like with that sort of stuff. But it was never good. Um, Shelly Vinegar, Jeff Confer, we had a whole ordeal when they were unveiling the black uniforms. This was during the rough era. I got my hands on it first, and they were not happy about it. So there was a whole back and forth there. They tried to threaten me, if you release it before, we'll revoke your credentials. I'm like, it's my job to break news, deal with it. So that was a whole ordeal. I'm trying to think. Ruff getting fired, I will say, is the most shocked I've ever been. Mike Houston getting fired, I knew it was coming, and I talked to boosters after the Charlotte game. It was one of those deals. The wheels were already in motion. They didn't tell Mike Houston until after Army, but they didn't want Blake Carroll to take a destroyed team to Army. And so those are just a few things that come to mind. I mean, there's been player interactions with parents, like some recent players' parents have come at me on social media about you're mischaracterizing my son, or you're not giving my son the right amount of attention compared to player X. And it's just like, you deal with that stuff, but those are some of the main things that stick out. I'm sure if I sat down and wrote all the ordeals out, I could figure out a lot more, but there's been plenty. Players' parents are not all of them, but there's probably a handful that have been quite bad.
Um, well, I earlier before the show, the millions out there are not going to know this, but I was telling Stephen about a specific player I had in mind from about over 10 years ago. Um, at the specific time, here's what I'm saying. This year in specific, I think he was the worst Division One quarterback in college football. I think he was that bad. And he is the worst college quarterback that on a week to week basis that I've ever seen, ever. And
Out
that
of any team.
in any I'm also to be fair, two
You
things.
primarily watch ECU.
I primarily watch ECU. I also exaggerate a little bit. I tend to embellish on certain things. But Reed Herring, listen, I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm sure he's a great guy. Hey, shout out, man. I know you're watching this, Reed. We're a big fan of you, pal. Shout out to everybody out there that's big Reed Herring fans. But me personally, I wanted to, cut out my eyeballs and eat them or something.
Reed Herring. God, you know how look, I actually liked Reed as a person. He was actually behind me in the Panera drive through one time, and like the next day at practice. He's like, "Hey, are you in the Panera drive through?" That's like the most interaction I ever had with Reed. But anyways,
Was he inside? Was he the guy that was taking your money or?
this was why he was the ECU quarterback, and he was driving like either a Mercedes or a BMW. I'm like, come on, but either way, that's a different story. Um, yeah, Reed Herring. I think Reed Herring is, and I don't mean this in any disrespect, but he's the most forgettable player that has played quarterback for ECU because, as you mentioned, quarterbacks. I was racking my brain, and I did not even think Reed Herring at all. Like I was going back to like Blake Kemp, James Summers, and
Right, right.
and Reed Herring just slipped my mind because of how that whole era, but definitely like his time at quarterback, it just didn't register because like he just didn't really do anything. I mean, I guess he had one decent game maybe against Cincinnati or something, or maybe that was Gardner Minshew. I don't know. I have to look it up, but
Yeah. I just watching
he
him.
lost to A&T.
He did lose to A&T. That was the last year Scotty Moe. That was the year that we lost like 100 million to 0 against NC
Okay,
State, and Dave Dorn iced us at the end of the game. Um,
Reed Herring.
but anyway, I remember watching him at the time. I've went back and watched him a couple times in highlights and stuff. I'm like, and listen, I mean, it's hard to say no disrespect. I mean, what it's hard for me to say no
It's pretty
disrespect,
disrespectful.
but hey, I'm sure he's a great guy, but no talent, no like. I mean, I was like, God. I mean, it was the whole team lacked talent, really. But that gets me to another question I had for you, just really quick, that I wanted to get to earlier. How much of Scotty Moe's lack of success was because of bad recruiting in the last couple of classes of rough, or was that a factor? Do you think?
It was a factor. It was a factor, but the problem Scotty Moe had was he came in, he didn't even try with those guys for the most part. He just was like, look, y'all aren't my recruits. I'm not going to invest in y'all. Because the thing that Ruff did was he recruited some bad players and he recruited some, turd individuals, but he like knew how to get to them and get the most out of them. And Scotty was just like, who are these guys? I don't want these guys. Basically, he came in with that Duke mindset. He had never been anywhere else. He didn't understand that you have to make it work with a different type of player at ECU. And by the time he realized that, it was too late. Like some of the guys they brought in, some of that, and honestly, the first staff he brought in, recruiting wise, you look back at those classes, it was largely a bust because he brought in coaches who had good resumes but were terrible fits at ECU. And so, like, I know for a fact because I had sources on staff, the staff would go around the office and just be like, man, I can't wait to get out of here. Like, going to coach this year. We're going to do our thing and get a different job. And, like, if you have that type of culture, you're going to have a shitty program. And they had a shitty program. And I will say, Scotty, by his third year, when he hired David Blackwell, he actually had a pretty good staff. But by then, it was too late. And they were recruiting better, but they never recruited well. They took some terrible players. They took some terrible people. And Ruff did have some misses. I want to say one of his last classes was not good at all, but a lot of that was a result of Scotty coming in and running those guys off, thinking he was going to be able to replace them with Duke-like guys, and you can't recruit to ECU like you recruit to Duke. So that was the other big thing. ECU and Duke completely different. He had only coached college football at Duke. Like it was never going to work.
Okay, and it's a little bit different point here, but I need to. I want to ask you about this really quick too. Um, this was kind of before we fired Mike Houston. People start theorizing about what type head coaches he might want. At the time, I'm thinking, hey, I mean, I'm looking at Mike Houston's current contract at the time and thinking about, if we could get someone even a little bit higher caliber than that. I'm like, hey, man, hey, everybody out there, what if we go call a Ray Lewis? you go call I don't know, somebody else, somebody else. But like, we just hire somebody like that has no experience, but they have a little bit of cachet behind the name. See what happens. What's the worst that could possibly happen? Really, honestly, we fire him and move on. I mean,
Scotty Mo 2.0. It would be the worst that could happen. But I mean, you want to know what's funny? Ray Lewis's people actually called trying to get the job here. Like 100%. That's 100% fact. They were trying to get an interview, I should say.
well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm glad I'm not AD, because I would say, let's get Ray Lewis on the first train. Tell me that Greenville wouldn't be electric. I'm walking out of the press conference, me and Ray Lewis. I'm like, hey, here'd be my opening line. There's a new sheriff in town.
There would be
That's what I would say. That's how I'd open the press conference. Hey, new sheriff in town. His name's Ray Lewis.
it would be electric until they rolled out there and lost 51-3 to NC State. Just like
Yeah,
Mike
yeah,
Mike Vick's, I think he just fired his coordinator at Norfolk State. They're like 1-6. It
yeah.
sounds good in theory. Like I mean, that's the thing, but you just don't know till you try. And I will say that I'm that way, and I don't hate it in football, but like for basketball now, man. Whenever it's time to hire a new coach, like why not go hire freaking whoever, man? Like hire
Let's,
Michael Jordan or what? Like if he would
yeah,
take the job, I don't know. Like
let's
whoever. Like
hire Paul Pierce, baby. Let's go
I
hire.
mean, let's
You
just
know,
make it work. Kevin Garnett. I don't know. Like just give me a name. I'm
let's do it.
tired of and I like Schwartz. I hope it works, but if you're gonna go that route, I'm all for it in basketball because and especially basketball, man, it's just all about bringing three star players. In football, you at least got to have like a semblance of a team, you know?
Yeah, I know, man. I'm thinking about. I just think about the possibilities because you look at obviously the Colorado situation too.
Yeah.
You could think the staff that Ray Lewis could potentially put together at East Carolina. I mean, hey, chills.
Hey, he wanted the job, so don't rule it out in the future.
Dude, that honestly, here's what's hilarious is that there was a previous GasCast episode right before that. This is exactly what I'm chronicling, and I said we need to call Ray Lewis. So my point is that my co-host is really going to get a kick out of this.
Well, maybe Ray Lewis listens to you guys' podcast. That's why his
He
people
does.
called
He
about the
does.
ECU job.
I think he would probably give an unreasonably intense press conference. Like he always
Oh,
does.
100%.
If we're not coming out to bleed, we're not coming out to sweat our, just.
If nothing else, the pregame speeches would be fire. You could do a whole
Oh,
documentary on those.
that. Oh man, imagine hosting NC State. They'd have him on the intro video. Ray Lewis, like, don't come to Dowdy messing around or something. or something. So, anyway, well, my friend, I mean, I can't thank you enough for the time. I've enjoyed it so much. This is, dare I say, an honor. Dare I say? But it's really appreciate it, man. GasCast, we're coming full force. We've our next guest confirmed, Big Hunick, Chris Hunican. Next,
Oh, heck yeah. I've always wanted to interview him. I've never done that. So I have to listen to that, man, because he's a lot richer than I am. So
yeah.
I would love
So
to
yeah. So I'm
get
like,
him involved in NIL.
I know. I'm like, my first question for Big CUNY, can I get a little loan, a couple 100,000? No, but I've got a mutual friend that's really good friends with him, so that's
Oh,
how,
yeah.
that's how it worked out. But it really excited to get him on, man. But just can't thank you enough, Stephen. This has been
Yeah.
awesome. I'm a big fan of yours, and
Appreciate that.
I think that it, but a lot of people don't know it. Like it really does matter a lot to at least some of us, and it matters a lot to me. I know it matters to you. It matters to my dad. Um, the games, the success that we have, we get in a better mood or a worse mood depending on the success sometime, and maybe not, to an extent, right? But still, it's like we bleed purple. We really do. And to see you representing all of us, it means a lot to me and everybody else. So I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that, man. It means a lot you saying that. And obviously, like, I couldn't do what I do without fans of the program that honestly care. And like I say this a lot, but when I go to these other American teams and they cover these games, like, they just don't have fans, man. They don't have fans that care. And like ECU, yeah, the crowds for some of these Thursday night games haven't looked good, but it still pales in comparison any other place to ECU. Like it's not even close, man. So ECU has something special. It'll always be that way, and I couldn't be more blessed to do what I do. So appreciate you, man, for all your support and everybody like yourself that invest time, resources, and investing not only in Hoist the Colors but ECU athletics because it means a lot. Pirate Nation, it needs everybody in this together. And I couldn't be prouder of Pirate Nation continue to stick with what's been a tough decade or so of athletics for the most part, and still hanging in there doing ECU proud. So appreciate you, man, for having me on.
Yes, sir. Stephen Igoe. Thank you, my friend.